What a very disturbing story. Let's then go to this in Mbombela. Transnet workers are continuing with their nationwide strike. United National Transport Union and the South African Transport and Allied Workers Union members have downed tools over wages. Unions have rejected Transnet's new offer of between 3 and 4%, up from 1.5%.
Employees not backing down. Union members at Transnet continue to down tools. They rejected both the 1.5 and 3% wage offer. Employees say the new offer is an insult considering the cost of living increasing.
During the time of COVID, we were the guys on the front line. We were the guys supporting whatever the country needed. And now, 3 years later, they come with a 1.5% increase or a 3% increase that's been watered down, where none of your pension or your housing allowance or your medical aid is going to be lifted as well. So we demand a better increase for the employees because of the price of the cost of living that's been increased currently, and it's escalating daily.
It's not enough. How much is 3% of a general worker? We really can't accept that. Due to the cost of living, everyone is affected. Either you are employed or you are not employed. The cost of living is affecting everyone. So our mandate to the employer is 12%. We are still sticking to the 12%. We are not nervous, we are not ashamed of what we are doing. The struggle continues.
United National Transport Union Steward says the strike action is affecting Transnet operations.
There will be some shortages of petrols, diesels in garages. And another thing, we're transporting coals to Eskom to generate electricity. So that's going to affect even Eskom. We don't know, because even now Eskom is in crisis of load shedding. So I don't know how much it is going to affect more than this time.
The union says they are not backing down on their demands.
But demanding 13%, or at least if the employer can come down, can meet us halfway. Maybe if he can offer us 12%, maybe we can accept that 12%. But if he's talking about 1.5%, 3%, because last time he was talking about 1.5%, and now she's saying 3%. So maybe if we can come to 12%, maybe we can accept that 12%. But the 3% is a no.
In a statement, Transnet remains of the view that the strike is unprotected. Meanwhile, workers have vowed to continue with their strike until their demands are met. The strike action could impact economic activity, with ports and rail services affected. Mbombela Mabasa, SABC News, Mbombela, Mpumalanga.
Professor Jackie Walters, a UJ professor in transport and logistics management, joins us now to discuss the impact of this particular strike. Prof, I suppose this could even be seen as a rhetorical question, but can the economy afford this?
Oh, hardly. We have a period of very poor economic performance in South Africa, large unemployment, international economy, being in the doldrums. And it's very difficult to justify or even consider an increase of over 12-13% of wages at this point in time. And I must also see it against the fact that Transnet is really underperforming. It's a declining performance, and it's costing the economy a huge amount of money at this point in time.
And one even looks at, what business leadership, South Africa, for example, was saying is that this is going to also have quite an adverse impact in the mining sector. And of course, looking at how, as you say, Transnet has not been performing well. This is going to have a severe impact, not only for the company that you say is performing below par, but it's going to hit other sectors of the economy quite hard here.
Yes, well, Transnet's a key player, especially in terms of high volume, low value commodities, iron ore, coal, manganese, ferrochrome, and so on. And we see increasing volumes of that being transported by road because of the inability of Transnet to transport these tonnages. And we've also seen the impact of the coal transportation by road to Richards Bay Port because the high international coal prices, it's become more viable to transport that bulk commodity over such distances by road. And this is not what we want to see. You see many more trucks on the road. These interlink side tipper trucks have escalated. Numbers have escalated in the thousands on our roads all over the country. And this is typical freight that should be on rail. And it seems as if Transnet is incapable of turning its business around and reversing this downward trend into more positive trends. But it's also, I must also say that it's also affected by vandalism and theft, which affects the power supply to locomotives and so on. But this is something that's systemic in the country, but specifically affecting Transnet. So it also has that externality impacting on the company. It's very, very difficult to control. But this should be a national focus, vandalism and theft of infrastructure, because it affects the economy, it affects jobs, it affects the costs of doing business in the country. Rail is by far the cheapest mode of transport over long distances, high volumes, low value products. And we should not have that on the road. So it's costing us, in any case, it's costing us a lot of money.
Especially given also what we are seeing when it comes to the transportation of goods on our roads. But Transnet is maintaining that its terminals at ports have not come to a standstill. But be that as it may currently, if things continue like this, there could be catastrophic results because they will not be able to maintain this particular situation for quite some time.
Well, maybe the next week or so should be okay because, deliveries to ports are not on a just-in-time basis. There's normally some storage taking place at the ports before the goods are loaded onto ships. But certainly if this strike goes into the second week or third week, we'll certainly see major ramifications on the economy, imports and exports, and impacts on supply chains.
And the sticking point, when really one looks at even the meeting tonight, appears to be around the picketing rules. And I wonder, what do you make of the company's handling of how things have unfolded here? Were they correct? And especially given these delays when it comes to the picketing rules and the workers not seemingly budging?
Well, I'm not really involved in labor matters. It's more for labor experts to answer that. But certainly we are in a state of flux in terms of labor in South Africa. The labor's position towards employers trying to get, these strikes and potential strikes resolved before they actually happen to minimize costs on companies and the economy, protect jobs and so on. So there seems to be a mismatch between what employers are doing and what labor is doing. And certainly the CCMA plays a role as far as bringing those two parties together.
And when we even see, and one of the things you were talking about a little earlier on was the vandalism, that of course is a headache, in infrastructure destruction and theft there. The Department of Employment and Labour has expressed concern at the situation and also saying that they are there to ensure that the parties are going to, must find one another. But in the absence of a long-standing solution when it comes to the issue that you raise around infrastructure, theft and vandalism, the talks that are happening inside may have very little to help this company that really needs to get back on its feet, because whatever agreement is drafted behind the scenes, a multi-pronged approach is needed to even fight this issue of theft and vandalism, which could also see maybe Transnet turning its fortunes round?
Yes, certainly it will help. I mean, if we can have reliable power and reliable infrastructure like signaling systems, railway lines and so on, certainly you can turn the business around and it will make a huge impact. If you look at PRASA, for instance, PRASA used to generate about 800 million passenger trips per annum, is down to 17 million. It's a huge, huge impact that vandalism and theft has had in that business. And it's the same with Transnet Freight Rail. A train, if you break the energy link, the electricity link on the line, the entire line comes to a standstill. All the trains come to a standstill. And so it's only the weakest link is really the energy side. And that's also the one area where these thieves and consortia are concentrating, is these copper cables, any infrastructure to do with rail. So certainly it's in the interest of the country to make this, I would think, is a national crisis that we have to deal with. The country's now looking at maybe banning exports of, scrap metal and so on. But you have to get to the syndicates, the people involved in this, and stop it where it begins. And I don't think we're really at that point in time with the national intelligence and dealing with this. But certainly it's not only the Department of Transport or the Minister of Public Enterprises problem this, it's also National Police, Security Force issues, national intelligence. All of these should be working together with industry as well, because industry, the owners of the cargo, are dependent on Transnet to transport those cargoes to the ports. So it's a multifaceted effort that should be going on, if it's not already going on, to try and stem this extensive vandalism and theft that we have of our infrastructure in this country.
As you talk about it, a national crisis, I mean, one thinks about the fact that, for example, the South African Association of Freight Forwarders, saying that the strike is causing, some serious logistics delays that could cost the economy anything between 100 million and 1 billion rand a day. And that, as you say, is a national crisis. Even the vandalism is a national crisis. We should be receiving urgent attention. But let's see what happens in the coming days. Prof, thank you so much. Do appreciate your time. That is Professor Jackie Walters, UJ Professor in Transport and Logistics Management.